Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Parish Partnership Panel. Your attention is drawn to agenda item 1, which sets out the ground rules and the guidance for the conduct of meetings. All of that's at pages 5 and 6. As usual, before we start the meeting proper, we'll just do a roll call to see who's here. So we'll start with borough members, then county members, and then parish. So if Alison, you'd be able to do that for us, please. You can just confirm that you're present when I call your name. We've had apologies from Councillor Dalton, Councillor Tatton, present, Councillor Bell, present, Councillor Betts. I believe Councillor Betts will. Councillor Banks.
Present.
Councillor Bolton. We've had apologies from Councillor Boxall. We've got apologies from Councillor Chapman, as I can see he's online. The same for Councillor Crisp. Apologies for in-room attendance, but he is online. Councillor Hammond. Councillor Hickmott.
Present.
Councillor Taylor.
Present.
Councillor Williams. I'll move on to the parish and town councils now, and I'm just going to call the parish and town council name. I don't need to know the name of the representative. I just need to know that the parish council had apologies from Addington, Alsford, Erlin, Borough Green, present, Durham, Ditton. We've had apologies from East Malling and Larkfield, I believe our apologies. East Peckham are apologies. Hadlow, Hildon Borough. Item, I believe, are online. That's apologies. Kings Hill.
Present online.
Thank you. Leybourne. Merryworth. Offham. Platt. Or was that for Platt? Blackstall. Ryash. Shibham. Snodland. Yeah, dual-hatted. Stansted. Crosley. Wateringbury.
Present online.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just making a note that that's an online. West Peckham. Walden. Bruton. And now we move on to county councillors. Councillor Dean. Councillor Hudson is online. Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Rayner. And we've had apologies from Councillor Sharm. And we have now got Councillor Betts present and Councillor Bolton. Thank you, Chair. In case we need it for later, there's 19 members in the chair. Thank you. Thank you, Alison. Item 2 is the appointment of chair and vice chairs. From the borough point of view, the chair and vice chair are appointed at the annual meeting of the borough council. Roger Dalton was reappointed as chair, and I was reappointed as vice chair. But what we need to do is appoint a vice chair from the parishes. So could I invite nominations, please? So we have one nomination. We'll have to have a seconder. From Bill. Are there any other nominations?
Alison. Oh, sorry, Michelle. Sarah Barker here.
It's Michelle. Sorry. Gonna just we've
Hold you
had a
there.
nomination. Sarah, I think I'm going to cover your point. We've
Thank
had a
you very much.
We've had a nomination from Calc for Sue Butterfield. Butterfield, sorry. Do we have a seconder for that? Yes. Okay, so we have 2 nominations. If there are no other nominations, we'll have to vote on those 2. So I don't know which order you want to do it in, Alison. We do Mary first, as we. Yep. So a show of sorry, I can't. Those in favour of Mary McKinley, please show your hand. Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those in favour of Sue Butterfield. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I confirm that Sue has been voted as second vice chair. Green, isn't it? Okay, thank you. Could I just thank Mary for being the vice chair for the previous year and the input that you've had. What would be usually if we invite Sue, if she would like to come and sit up here, if you would like to, and if you wouldn't mind joining your colleagues on the floor there. Thank you. Mike.
I'd just like to offer my thanks to Mary as well for the years she served us.
Okay, if we move on to item 3, which is apologies for absence. The apologies are as noted from the roll call. Thank you. And are there any substitute borough members? Not been advised of any. I can't see any present. No. Thank you. So item 5 is the minutes. Are you happy that I sign those of the 5th of February as a correct record of that meeting? Thank you. Do that. So item 6, does anyone have anything they want to comment on those minutes, or have any updates, anything that's not on the agenda? No, thank you. So item 7. Sorry, just is the presentation from the Safer Neighbourhoods team. So I think Des is going to say a few words first, and then we have Georgie, who is going to give a presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good evening to excellent parish partnership team. As you all know, sorry, my name is Des Kears. I'm the Cabinet Member for Community Services. As you know, for the last 2 years, we've had an ASB enforcement team. We've changed the name this year to Safer Neighbourhoods, and we've done that because we literally want to impact more on neighbourhoods and the feeling of reassurance and confidence in our communities, rather than go down the enforcement side totally. There will still be enforcement activities, but we want to make sure that people are feeling good about where they live. So this team started again this year on the 6th of May. They'll be working Wednesdays through to Sundays, which are the hotspot peak times for antisocial behaviour. And we've actually done something that we haven't done before, and we've actually awarded a contract for 2 years for this time, because that means that the team can integrate more with our communities, and the communities can get to know the team far better, rather than just year on, year off, year on, year off. So there'll be 4 officers employed. They'll be split into 2 teams, and they'll work on variable shift patterns. And variable shift patterns means they'll be working at different times of the day according to demand and where they're needed. But on Fridays and Saturday nights, where the demand is significant, one team will be working until midnight at least. Now, they'll be wearing a uniform with a blue vest, clearly identified as TMS protection, and they'll be also using vehicles with the TMS logo. They will cover the whole of the borough, and they'll provide at least a weekly visit to those parishes that I've assisted in funding this scheme, because it isn't cheap. I think the team should have now introduced themselves to parish councils, and Georgie will just talk about that in just a second. But if you haven't contributed towards a scheme, it doesn't mean to say you won't get a visit, because you will, because it is a borough initiative. There'll just be a service delivery plan for those parishes and town centre councils that have contributed towards it. Lots of work going on behind the scenes to make sure that the teams are visiting the right locations, and any information provided to them is fed through to the right place, i.e. the police or the Community Safety Partnership, which I chair. So Georgie is here tonight from TMS. She's going to be attending, when invited, the Parish Partnership panel from now on. She's the Senior Operations Manager and is now going to give a presentation on the work in the borough, and we are very, very lucky to have TMS with us. And Georgie, over to you.
A bit new to this, so if I stumble or anything, I apologise. So yeah, I'm from TMS Protection. I've been with them for 9 years now. Have been actively involved in the management of this, as well as actually worked it myself. I also have the CSAS accreditation, which I will speak about in a minute. But if we could just. So as Councillor's just said, we've been appointed to provide a safer neighbourhoods team. It's made up of 4 officers, which are split into 2 teams, and they work Wednesday to Sunday. The timings are flexible for it as well, but at the moment we will have a 12 to 8 p.m. and then a 4 p.m. till midnight for both teams. The aim of the service is to provide high visibility patrols across all of the borough and offer reassurance to the public and support enforcement of the council's public space protection orders. Our success is measured through public engagement, patrol activity, and the use of enforcement powers with regular monitoring and feedback in place. It's important that the officers are fully briefed on the relevant powers and are trained to engage with the public professionally and effectively. This is just our values as a company. These include putting our customers first and taking accountability for our actions. These values are important because they shape how our officers engage with the public, represent the council, and carry out their duties on the ground. So these are the CSAS powers that our officers currently have. So CSAS stands for the Community Safety Accreditation Scheme. We work with Kent Police and Met Police, who provide training for this for our staff, and then they'll go through the police vetting to be able to have the powers to do this. They allow our officers to deal with a range of community safety issues, including antisocial behaviour, alcohol-related disorder, littering and graffiti. The purpose of these powers is to allow officers to take practical and proportionate action where appropriate, rather than simply observing and reporting. All the powers are used in line with the training and accreditation requirements, and they support a more effective local response to public nuisance and low-level offending. The team is expected to provide a responsive neighbourhood service through visible patrols, particularly in areas affected by ASB and resident complaints. This includes gathering intelligence, engaging constructively with young people and the wider public, carrying out enforcement where appropriate, and focusing patrols on identified hotspots. These hotspots are given to us weekly in the meetings that I will have with the council team. I'll get a list sent through, and then I can pretty much tailor it to how we need it to be every week. There's an emphasis on the parks and open spaces, as well as large gatherings, with patrols designed to both deter and respond to antisocial behaviour. So we want our officers to have regular face-to-face contact with the public, whether it's through the patrols, attending events like I believe they did today. There was a community day in Brutum, yes. So they went down there today, and it's all about just making sure that people know who they are, what they're there for, and know that they're there to advise and support them in any way. It's to build trust, encourage people to share concerns, and create a visible and approachable presence. The team is expected to be visible whilst also attending any meetings or community days. There's also an educational element to the role, especially when it comes to the young people. We want to try and advise them of what they can be doing instead of causing any issues that they may currently be. One of the Oh, no, that's fine. One of the main benefits of the service is improving feelings of safety within local communities. The patrol presence can reassure residents, businesses and visitors, particularly in locations where there have been ongoing concerns. The team provides reassurance in key locations and responds directly to antisocial behaviour and nuisance issues, helping to address problems early and prevent repeat issues from becoming more serious. Another important function is supporting a coordinated response to reoccurring concerns. Officers are often in a good position to identify patterns, gather local intelligence and feed this back into the council and wider partnership activity. The team contributes to creating a safe environment for the residents, businesses and visitors. The impact is both immediate through visibility and intervention and longer term through partnership working, intelligence gathering and problem solving. So the team work with the police, CCTV, community groups and local businesses to share intelligence, report incidents and support a joined up response to local concerns. These include joint patrols, regular communication and supporting the wider community safety initiatives. Engagement with community groups helps us understand area-specific concerns and tailor our patrol plans or responses accordingly. By working closely with partners, the team can respond more effectively and help target activity where it's needed most. Patrol logs and incident reports provide a clear record of activity and help ensure accountability. We review these to identify trends, hotspot areas and any changes needed to patrol plans by tracking antisocial behaviour reports. It allows us to understand demand and to assess whether targeted patrols and interventions are making a difference. Feedback from businesses, residents and partners is another important measure alongside ASB reporting and other KPIs. We have regular weekly review meetings to discuss what the team have found. All of our reports are sent over to the council and then reviewed, and then we can change or tailor anything that needs to be done going forward. I've just put this up as an example of one of the job sheets. So each day I will go through anything that the council have provided to me that need to be visited. We try to give an hour time slot at each location that we visit, and any hotspots that have been identified will then the team will then go there and ensure that there isn't anything, try and report. We also have our body worn video, so anything that we do see we can capture on there, which we are then able to watch on a live stream as well through our control room, and escalate it if necessary, report it to 101 police, anywhere it needs to go to. It ensures the patrols are planned, targeted and aligned to known concerns or recent incidents. And on the right is an example of the smart form used by the officers to record the patrol activity. It allows officers to capture key information in real time, including the site visit, the observations and any photographic evidence. These help to ensure that the patrol activity is not only delivered, but also clearly documented and easy to review. It's important for us, and it's also important for the client, for demonstrating that the service is targeted, responsive and evidence-led. That is everything. If anyone has any questions.
I just want to ask, what's the process if we suddenly have antisocial behaviour, so in Hadlow and the fields there, what does somebody do? Is there a number for you? Do they call the police, or what's the actual process for people to do?
I can take that if you wouldn't mind, Chair.
Please do.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the process is, as always has been. I mean, there's different methods, and what we're trying to do is increase accessibility for the public to contact us So it isn't just dialing 101 now. I'd urge everyone to dial 101 because the police keep, to drive the intelligence-led policing model that Kent Police have, they need to record everything. So I'd certainly say that. And then secondary, ring the local council, ring us, TNBC, go through to the Community Safety Partnership because we have our own measurements. And that lovely man sitting at the end on the panel there, he's the chap who records all of our stats and facts, and he'll go through them in just a second. So yeah, and then that will come directly to us. And what we do within TNBC, we merge, it's called the Community Safety Partnership. So we merge policing with local authority and other enforcement agencies all together, and we work out the best way forward from that. And you can do this online, you can do it by the telephone, and certainly the 101 number. And I know Kent Police, if they were here tonight, I think there's a script that we're reading tonight from Kent Police. There's also other options that you can do it through them as well. So we want to increase accessibility, and I think we've done that this time.
Can I just ask, what's the telephone number for community services? Is it just TNBC's head office?
Community Safety Partnership, yeah, absolutely. It's a TNBC generic number, but if you go online, you can normally go through there. If it's not an emergency, you can just write it down and submit it via email.
Okay.
If it is an emergency, then you should be dialing 999 in any case. But there is a generic number for TNBC, and then just ask for the community safety team.
Okay, thank you. I can see there are 2 people online, or 3 people now, but I'll just come to Mike Taylor first.
Thank you, Chair. In the list of powers that your officers have, it says power to stop cycles. Does that include electric bikes and electric scooters? Thank you.
Yes, it does. Yes. Obviously, it's harder for our team because they are on foot patrols. We drive to the locations, but we are mainly foot patrols. So if they're on electric bike and they've gone, then there's not a lot we can do. But we would have had body worn video, which we can then pass on to the police and the council, which then hopefully will catch fun.
Thank you. I'm struggling to see the names of the people online. I think there's a Mark. So I think Mark is number 1 by their hand.
Chairman, it's Mark Rhodes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not a member of the PPP. Can we just go back to what Mike Taylor was mentioning a minute ago? It does say the power to stop cycles. Now, where is that power? Where can you do that power? Is it the highway? Is it Kent County Council footways? Or is it private land? Or is it TNBC land? And the second question is, when your officers go out, do they go out in pairs or do they go out singly? Because I get very agitated when I see 2 people of the same whatever in the same uniform, where one could do the job and one could be somewhere else doing the important job as well. But because if they go out in pairs for protection, then that needs reviewing. And well, it's going to cost more, I know, but I'd really like to know that, please. Thank you very much, Chairman.
In terms of what they go out with, yes, they do go out in pairs, and they always have in any of our roles that we do, lone working, especially with having to confront ASB and antisocial behaviour and the potential of something that could go wrong. They are always together, but it works because then you've got the support of your team member with you. From personal experience, people do get aggressive, people do get rude, people do get in your face, and having that person there, being able to swap people over when you've got someone who's quite aggressive and isn't liking what you're saying, being able to take that person out and bring someone else in is probably one of the best things that we could have, in my opinion, just because if you're on your own and you've got a group of children that you're trying to explain why it's dangerous to swim in a lake, for example, you do sometimes get sort of bombarded. And it's also because if you are on your own and you're with young people, you've got a body worn, correct, but it's nice to have the support of someone else with you. In terms of that question, the other one, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Mark, for the question. Excellent question as always. Anywhere in Tunbridge and Morning Borough Council, they have the CSAS powers, Community Safety Accreditation Scheme. So that means that any public place, the officers can stop and and do what they need to do with that individual. I totally agree with the paired up strategy of patrolling. It's health and safety. It's also best evidence, and yeah, it'd be great. Police officers can go around singly, but I think you'll find 9 times out of 10 now they'll go in pairs because of that reason. But yeah, so I hope that answers your question, Mark.
Thank you for that.
Uh,
Luke Chapman online.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Des, can you just clarify if Snodland Town Council has signed up to this? And if not, can you tell us how beneficial it was for us so that the 2 members from Snodland that are on Town Council maybe could reconsider this for us?
Please, Des.
Thank you, Luke. Yeah, cheers. And I wish I'd stayed at home now, but no, Luke, brilliant question. Snodland Town Council sadly didn't sign up to this, and I've just been speaking to the chairman actually, and off record. But it's a real shame because we know Snodland is our highest area for crime and ASB. But I'm sure the chairman will make representations following some incidents recently in Snodland. It is crying out. Snodland is crying out for this team, and while Snodland will get some patrol activity from the team, it won't have the specific built-in service delivery plan because it hasn't contributed basically, but it will still get some activity in Snodland. I hope that answers your question. Was there another part to that, Luke?
Was there another part to that, Luke, or has that answered your question? Luke's disappeared. We'll go to Sarah Barker.
Thank you, Chair. It's going on from the parish councillor at Hadlow. I'm a little unclear as to how any antisocial behaviour that this group may help with. If it's requested online at a weekend, then there'll be nobody looking at that information. Could we have clear lines of how we should report anything? A, on a weekday, or B, at the weekends? And I have always thought that the first line is online with Kent Police or 101, but if it's in a real emergency, 999. It seems a little bit fluid at the moment as to how an incident or something that's happening is going to actually be reported. I wonder if somebody could clarify that for me, please.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll bring Des in again.
Sarah, absolutely pleasure to see you, madam. The really good question again. Look, we don't work 24/7, and we haven't got vehicles with blue lights on,
No.
so we can't deal with emergencies. So I'd urge you always to go to the police in the first instance. The police, believe it or not, still do work 24/7. And they're always going to be the first port of contact. We are more slow time. You could argue that we are reactive but want to be proactive. But we have to be proactive by answering, by sort of like disseminating all of the intelligence and finding out where and predicting where we think the crimes are going to take place and the ASB is going to take place, so that we can put these officers into the locations, thus preventing it from taking place. I will ask Alison Finch to send to all the parish clerks a complete list of numbers from everyone in the community safety partnerships and all the accessible devices from which you can report antisocial behaviour. And I'll do that. I'll get that done. So Alison's back on Tuesday next week. I'll get it done, and that will be with you sometime early next week, if that's okay, Sarah, and colleagues in the room.
Could I come back, Michelle, please? Yes, I think that's an excellent plan. I have already suggested, because I believe Kings Hill have contributed, that the new personnel do at some point try and come to a parish council meeting as well. And I think all the councillors will be feeding information back in through the clerk. But thank you for taking that on board as well, Des. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any more questions? Wendy.
Thank you, Chair. Parish Council, touch everything wooden, don't have a great ABS issue. What we do have is dog fouling in one particular park. So I was wondering, is there a sliding scale of fees? Because we really don't need you in the middle of the night, but a Saturday afternoon would be very useful. But you only need to do a couple, because scaring the living daylights out of them, the word will go round very quickly. So I was just wondering if there is a sliding scale of your fees.
Please, Des.
Absolutely brilliant question again. Look, dog poop. Yeah, interesting. I've got a community litter picking group that picks up all of our dog poop that we see. But I would absolutely say that a very small parish doesn't need to be contributing to this scheme if they don't have lots of crime and ASB, because I know for some parishes, and I've had conversations with various colleagues around the parish councils who want the scheme but can't afford it. So I would say that if you haven't got a lot of crime and ASB, and I would tell you if you have, then you probably wouldn't need to contribute, because you will still get a service. You will still get a service. This is a borough initiative, and you'll still get a service, irrespective of whether you've contributed. The contributions come from people who need that extra little bit of a lift, an extra little bit of a visibility, a reassurance, and for people to see them in preventive mode within their parishes. So I would say that, Wendy, if your parish clerk could liaise with Georgie and her team, certainly Georgie, who's very accessible, and I think if they could liaise with Georgie and say when this is happening, where it's happening, because I don't think we can put a timing on the dog having a number 2. I think it would be brilliant if you could give those details to Georgie, the locations, and we would do what we can to be there and see what we can get out of that.
Tom Shelley had a question.
Hello. Yes. Will they be able to do anything about monitoring traveller activity as described in the Daily Mail of 2 days ago in this area, or large-scale rubbish dumping? It's much worse than things which are much worse than littering.
Another one for you, Des.
I love it. Keep them coming. I love it. Tom, again, really good question. This is not the remit of this team. This team focuses on community reassurance. We have a bespoke team that deals with litter and waste, fly tipping. That's a different team to these lovely people, but they are good at intelligence gathering around fly tipping. So all of their information will feed into the waste services department, who have got a team that deal with that thing. So it does get dealt with, but not through this team. The other one about travellers, yeah, we have again another team within the local authority that deals with travellers. This team would be specific. If they saw a traveller encampment set up, for example, this team would report that. They would come back and they would certainly provide that intelligence. Kent Police would be involved. The authority has a process that they go through to remove and evict those travellers if they're there illegally. And, you know, sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. Normally they are, but it's a long drawn out process that could include court procedures, etc., etc. So this team is specifically for community reassurance, and enabled an extension to the policing neighbourhood teams with an enforcement capacity. And I think hopefully that's answered it, Tom, because it does get dealt with, but this team wouldn't be dealing specifically with those issues.
Sorry, just in terms of that, although yes, we don't necessarily deal with it, but because they are going absolutely everywhere, I make them walk some miles, I can assure you. Any fly tipping that is found, we use what 3 words so that we're able to pinpoint that exact location of where that is. We report it straight to the council to try and get it removed as quick as possible, because obviously we're not going to walk past a load of rubbish and just go, oh, that's not our remit. Obviously, we will still try and make sure we report it over as quick as we can and try and use as much technology to make sure that everyone knows exactly where that fly tipping is.
Thank you. Robin and then Paul Hicknott.
Thank you, Chair. Just to come back to Wendy's issue, I won't describe it in detail, but with my environmental hat on, maybe the dog warden might be a good tack there. All right, well, there you go. It was just a thought, but that's another avenue, but I can always get involved as well on that side of things. Thank you.
And Paul.
Yeah, just coming back to the problem that we heard about the BP garage at Holborn. There's been other incidents just recently in the town centre where there's been 20 odd youths knocking about the place. Unfortunately, When this came up for renewal, the town council didn't support it. For me personally, I was in favour of it, and I think maybe it might be possible if we could have a relook at this, because we've suffered it quite a bit. I know that Barclays put their own security people in Holborough Lakes, but the more people we got patrolling, the better it is. Because I'm absolutely sure these people, they not only come out when the sun's out, they get on the train and they come in from outside. That's where most of them are not local people. So we need to get a handle on it and sort it out.
Thank you, Paul. The lady here, sorry, I'm not quite sure what parish you're.
Stansted. Is that right? I wondered if this team, and if not this team, what team, can do anything about speeding traffic. I think that we're not on our own with the fact that our villages are being used as cut-throughs, and the traffic has no respect for the fact that it might say 60 miles an hour, but it's not appropriate. And we, as a parish, have had a few instances with horses and cars. And do you help with that, or can you point us in the right direction?
Inherent risks with officers going out dealing with speeding traffic, unless they're fully trained and know what they're doing, if you like. This team would be part of a wider team involving Kent Police, Kent County Council, and other enforcement agencies. To, as we've seen in Snodland, as we've seen in East Peckham and other areas of this borough. So yes, the answer is yes, they would be a part of it, but they would not lead specifically on that issue, because there's a lot of dangers within speeding traffic, and there needs to be the right equipment and the right enforcement tactics put in place. So it would be predominantly led by Kent Police. It's something that we can drive. It's something that you need to feed into us as a community safety team, because remember, the council's team and the Kent Police team work in the same office, so they share information brilliantly. So that's why we need all the information we can get. Cheers.
So are there any more questions?
Yes, please, Michelle.
Sarah, you have another question?
Yes, it's a comment really for Wendy. I would strongly recommend the very effective and efficient services provided by Tamsin Ritchie at Tunbridge and Morling for organising poo pickups. So perhaps your clerk should contact Tamsin, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm sure that's noted. I think if there are no more questions then, thank you to Des for answering some questions, but also thank you very much, Georgie, for coming along and for your presentation, and good luck.
Everyone for having me.
The presentation will be circulated. Alison will arrange that. Okay, item 8 is the Stansted Community Governance Review. I understand that Stansted Parish Council would like to increase their numbers anyway. So Jeremy Whitaker, you're going to tell us a bit more. Thank you.
Very much, Chair, and good evening, everyone. Yes, so following a request from Stansted Parish Council and a subsequent formal consultation from the 16th of March to the 17th of April, a report is now going to the Borough Council's General Purposes Committee on the 10th of June, with the consultation results and a recommendation to increase the number of councillors on the parish council from 7 to 9. So just as part of the consultation, the Borough Council sent letters to every household in the parish, along with emails to all registered electors that we had addresses for. This was supplemented with regular social media posts and physical poster as well. In total, we had a 6.4% response rate, which is broadly average for this sort of review. Not as high as the recent Tunbridge CGR review, but much higher than the recent Maidstone review. Of those that did respond, over 80% were supportive of the increase in councillor numbers. If it's agreed at General Purposes Committee, there are a few measures that need to be undertaken in advance of the change being implemented at the next scheduled parish town council elections in May 2027. And these include informing the parish council and other key stakeholders of the decision of the General Purposes Committee, publishing an order and notifying the relevant bodies, and also updating the election system at publication of the register in December 26. So that's just a very brief overview of where we've got to with the community governance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jeremy. Did anyone have any questions, or did Stansted want to comment at all?
I'm pleased we had 80% support and that it's been recommended to go forward, and I look forward to getting the results and getting extra help on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Harry Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to say that I'm fully supportive of the increase. I hope that you can my name to the minute if this goes forward to the General Purposes Committee at Tunbridge and Morling with a view to recommending this. So there's a lot going on in Stansted Parish in terms of community assets and so forth, and they clearly need the additional members. They're relatively light at the moment, and so the burdens fall on relatively few shoulders. So this has my full support.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other comments, no. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Don't know if you want to disappear or whether you're staying. Or... So item 9 is the planning update, and we have James Bailey, Head of Planning, online. Hello, James. If I could hand straight over to you, please, and then I think I'm going to come to Mike a little bit later. Thank you.
Hello, members. Hopefully everyone can hear me. God, it's a hard act to follow in terms of the Safer Neighbourhood team. I certainly haven't got a glitzy presentation for you all, but I was going to sort of do if I can call it a sort of canter through what's been happening in development management and local plans work, because there's been a lot going on. And I think if I would start at development management first, I'm going to share my screen and just share you some sort of extracts from our website. Obviously, I thought I would sort of start off on what's most pertinent that you would have seen in the headlines, and that's probably effectively most pertinent in development management world at the moment, and that's water supply issues and South East water response. So in terms of what we were doing, there was a pause for applications being determined on less than major and applications going to planning committee, principally on the basis of the South East water response to the Reg 18 local plan consultation, effectively, which said there was concerns over capacity and supply for meeting our local plan need. So in effect, that's set out in the Water Resources Management Plan 24. And I'm not going to go and get too technical in detail, but in a sense, development management has relied on Water Resources Management Plan 24 for effectively meeting policy SQ5 of the local plan and CP25. So historically, it's been met. Officers haven't had to consider it, members haven't had to consider it, because it's set out and mandated by government that you have to have water resources management plan, and that looks at the supply for the next 5-year period. So as soon as that response came from South East Water, that put into an array that obviously it became a material planning consideration in development management terms, and therefore planning applications had to consider those particular aspects. So what that meant is for development management, we put a pause to allow applicants and agents the opportunity to submit us information of how their scheme address policies SQ5 and CP25 of the local plan. And obviously, in certain applications, applicants and agents on larger schemes submitted a technical note. So we've moved forward. The local plan has progressed matters in terms of South East Water. We've been having lots of engagement with DEFRA, who's leading on this, with MHCLG, with the Environment Agency, with South East Water. So we've been having discussions for approximately the last 2 months, and I'll come on to that in terms of local plan matters. But that's in effect culminated in a sort of progression of the development management where following, and obviously we've been seeking legal advice on that matters, we are now effectively taking applications back to planning committee and obviously issuing them under delegated powers as well. Obviously, on the back of that, you'll be aware that in terms of full council on the 12th of May, where full council agreed that effectively the area planning committees would be replaced by a single planning committee, and we've got that first planning committee on the 24th of June. So going forward, there has been a sort of a further delay in terms of applications coming back to committee, but they will be resuming on the 24th of June on that basis. So in effect, going forward now, in terms of water supply issues, on our website, and I'm just going to share my screen, and hopefully you'll be aware. I'm just going to share my screen here. So this is on the TMB website. Hopefully you can, it should just be coming on screen now. It's not quite sharing yet. So hopefully you can see that. Chair, could you just put your hands up to say you can see that? Okay, thank you very much. So on our website, under water supply and planning applications, this effectively sets out how we are now progressing applications and what we require applicants and agents to submit to address water supply issues. I won't go through it in detail because it is on our website. I'm quite happy to provide the links if you haven't seen it. And in effect, it goes through the issues with policy SQ5, why it's required, the issues of the water resource management plan, what the implications for the South East Water comments on the Reg 18 consultation, and effectively what does this mean for planning applications. Moving forward, if you click how will we assess applications, it sets out the sort of latest information in terms of what we require in order for applicants to address the effectively supply issues regarding water. And again, I won't go into detail, but in effect, anything of a major development will require a potable water demand technical notice. And we put in terms of on this area, there's a link and effectively sets out what we expect to see in that potable water demand technical notice. And you probably would have noticed we've gone out to consultation on our local validation checklist. And that's effectively a requirement that if we want to effectively invalidate an application without this potable water demand technical notice, it has to be included in our validation checklist. So we're out to consultation for 5 weeks at the current time, following which we'll take on board any comments received, and then every major application will have to submit this potable water demand technical note. It does also set out in terms of how we're going to address the supply matters for development management purposes, not for local plan purposes. And it sets out that effectively for 30 dwellings or more, or for commercial of 3,000 square meters, we will be looking at a Grampian style condition. Now, a Grampian style condition, as I said, there's a link to the MPPG, which sets out effectively what is a Grampian. But that is in effect a condition that prevents development until such time as there is sufficient capacity. Now, we've had legal advice. Obviously, we've had counsel that have come in, given a presentation on that basis, setting out that Grampian is the legal route for applicants and local planning authorities to go down to manage this supply issue, whilst the local plan effectively deals with the finer detail, if I can say. So that effectively sets out the approach. As I said, I won't go into too much detail on that. I also wanted to move on to the next in terms of the PAS review, Planning Advisory Service Review. Obviously, and I'm just going to show in screen, currently we have an action plan that was agreed by Housing and Planning Scrutiny Select Committee and also agreed by Cabinet that there'd be an action plan to deliver the recommendations set out in the PAS review, the peer challenge review. Now, some parish councils were interviewed as part of that process back in September. We had a report published, and on the back of that, we progressed an action plan. And effectively, what's on your screen, this is reported to every H&P, and it is the action plan that was agreed, and then you've got progress updates. So this is available on the council's website, and this effectively sets out where we are with regard to the action plan. It effectively sets out in terms of a traffic light system. Yellow is being progressed, green is completed actions, and white are not yet started, and some of those issues are due to a slight delay in our IDOC's transfer of information system. So if you wish to have a review in terms of the recommendations coming out of the PAS review, which were agreed by effectively Cabinet, then this is the format that it sets it out. And one of those key issues that we're currently going through at the current time is recommendation 4. And that is obviously looking at, I'm just taking you to that one now, that is a review of the service structure, which is currently being undertaken at the moment. What the peer challenge team sort of effectively found that there weren't sufficient conservation resource embedded within the development management team and accessed by officers, and also landscape support. And also they did pick out in terms of the business support manager role that it wasn't utilised to its full extent. So what we're currently doing at the moment is going through a review of the service structure, looking at sort of how the team can work most efficiently, looking at reporting lines, looking at new roles, and obviously that will be a report that will eventually feed its way into the committee structures, who will obviously have to agree in the future any additional resources and any additional posts that are being created. So that's due to sort of work through its system in the next couple of months. Also wanted to bring out in terms of some work that as part of this sort of PAS review, we applied for a digital planning fund. Now what that seeks, and we were successful in securing £50,000 from MHCLG, and effectively that looks at digitalisation of a lot of our data systems, in effect, which should be made public, which aren't made public at the current time. And for example, I could say Article 4 directions. What we want to be able to do is to publish all our Article 4 directions and effectively map them on the GIS boundary so they're easily and transparent and everyone can see and effectively what permitted development rights they remove. Another example of what we're looking to do is in terms of listed buildings. Whilst you've got Heritage England, who provide the main register, what that doesn't do is look at curtilage listed buildings. So as part of this work, we'll be looking at mapping effectively listed buildings and their curtilages, and these will eventually be digitalized and then put on our website so everyone can see. So it's about mapping information moving forward so the public and yourselves have access to that information. We're also quite successful in terms of pathways to planning, in terms of recruitment, and we managed to secure, again, almost a £50,000 grant, and that has contributed to us employing a graduate planner who will be joining us in September. We've had the interviews. They're a fast track system where effectively MHCLG recruit, and they're not actually planning degrees, they come from other specialism areas, but they're sort of at the high end of their degree courses. So what that means is they feed into this system, we interview, we offer a position. We actually interviewed 4 people recently. One of them was exceptionally good. And what they will do is that we'll be putting them on a course in terms of an MRTPI course to transfer into planning. And we secured that for a 2-year position. So those are just some of the areas in terms of DM. I could go on forever and a day in terms of what's happening in DM, but I kind of wanted to capture just the key issues because I know there are other items on the agenda and I'm sure you've got lots of questions. So that's all I was going to do for development management. I should also mention, obviously, you'll all be aware that we're now transferred back to uniform IDOCs. Hopefully you'll all be quite glad of that. I know that there were lots of issues raised with our previous back office system. We're still having some transfer issues in terms of data, so we're not fully functional in terms of IDOCs at the current time. We're hopefully to be fully functional in around mid-June. That's the sort of the time frame we're looking at the current time. But as I said, it hasn't been the smoothest of transitions going back because of the way the Delta was held by the previous system, but sort of great strides have been made to move that forward. So some of the systems that you're used to have, or you used to have under the old system, we will get back online in due course. So that's really the sort of the update in terms of development management. I wasn't going to go into too detail in terms of performance levels, but overall, in terms of we met all the government targets in terms of performance, in terms of submitting planning applications, determining planning applications in a timely manner. And obviously, you know, we have had this period where we've had to transfer systems, so that has had an impact, a slight impact in terms of applications and a backlog going forward, but we are addressing those as we move forward. So I was just going to move on into local plan matters. Local plan matters are moving at pace. You'll obviously be aware that the Reg 18 consultation closed on the 2nd of January of this year. We moved very quickly to reporting those comments to H&P back in the back end of March. And we recently, at the latest H&P, we updated sort of statutory comments from statutory consultees so members could see. And there was a sort of a flavour in terms of what the statutory consultee was saying, what we're proposing to do for the Reg 19 to make sure we capture all those comments. Obviously, there's been a programme for member engagement put into place. In terms of making sure that members, as we move forward to Regulation 19, the key date is 3rd of September of this year. In terms of that's full council for when the Reg 19 will be considered by full council. Under the current timetable, it's proposed to go out to consultation on the 10th of September. And then obviously submission is currently programmed towards the end of December 2026. Now, that timeline is a tight timeline that has been set, and I kind of refer it to the legacy system now in local plans. That's what we refer it to. It's the legacy system where the local plan will be examined under. So it will be examined under the current 2024 NPPF and not any subsequent later additions which will come out in due course, which you will be aware that we had the consultation relatively recently. So the government has set out that anyone using the legacy system must submit their plans by the 31st of December 2026. So we are working at pace to hit that deadline and following the mandate that was given to us by the council to progress a local plan at pace and meet the timescales set by government. So it is challenging. And obviously you would have seen as part of the Reg 18 quite a detailed Reg 18 consultation with sites. Obviously, as we've progressed moving forward, some of those sites have been revisited, some sites have dropped out, some sites have been added in order to meet our objectively assessed needs. You will realise that when we went to Regulation 18, we only just met our objectively assessed need, and that was without buffer. That's without a buffer. And what we are required to do in terms of what government and what the NPPF set us out that we must do is meet our objectively assessed need, plus we must include a 20% buffer, and that's to account for under delivery. So, you know, as a consequence, we've had to sort of look at sites We've had to look at our land availability assessment in detail to make sure we can meet our objectively assessed need, and obviously we can meet our buffer requirements. And it's looking positive in that direction in terms of meeting both those elements. But as I said, we're still some time off between the 3rd of September, but we are moving at pace. So alongside that, obviously, we're commissioning further updates to the evidence base on the Reg 18. There's, in terms of transport evidence base that's coming forward. So we're doing what we call a VISM model, which is a high-level strategic model, which follows the Kent model. So we're extracting tonnage and mauling out of that model specifically, but it's one that's been developed for the whole of Kent. So it follows the same methodology, whether you're in Maidstone, whether you're in Tunbridge Wells, whether you're in Dover, whether you're in Ramsgate. So it uses the same methodology, but you just extract it. So we've got Jacobs, who are our transport consultants, who are carrying out that work and extracting it from the Kent model. There's lots of other work going on in the background. You may have seen in terms of consultations on local green spaces where parishes have been contacted, and we ran a sort of mini request quite recently on that. We've got work going out in terms of conservation area appraisals. What H&P agreed recently was that we would look at a review of our conservation area statements, and that was for the local plan. And obviously we would then look at updating a conservation area appraisals over a period of time. And what we're basing that on is basing on where there is most development pressure. That's where conservation area appraisals should be looked at, updated. But we will be having conservation area statements for the whole borough, and that will support the local plan. So that's just a sort of a snapshot. There's lots of other work that's going on in the background. We're updating our strategic housing market assessment. So there's lots of work. Our economic study, we're updating on that basis. In terms of our green belt, our green wedge policy, that's being progressed. In terms of our proposals for our green belt extension, that evidence base is also being aggressed. There's probably far too much to go into detail at this current time, and I don't think that will suit your purpose. But as you will note, we are moving at pace to hit the 3rd of September deadline, and we are currently on track on that basis in terms of with our evidence base meeting the deadlines that it's required to meet. So I thought that's probably, as I said, it is a gallop. I haven't covered lots of things that we're still doing, but I thought there should be an opportunity for any questions that you may have, and if I can answer them, I will try to do that. So hopefully, Chair, that just gives a flavour in terms of where we're at, what the team are doing, how we're progressing matters both for DM and for policy.
Thank you very much, James. I think that was all really helpful, really useful. I'm going to come to Mike Taylor first.
Thank you very much, Chair. He knows his stuff, doesn't he? You can see why he's Chief Planning Officer. I thought it might be useful to just touch on a couple of the points that James has raised. From a layperson's perspective, I know how difficult it has been for me to grasp some of these things, and I'm sure some of you will suffer from the same problem. The water situation, and here we are tonight, there's 15,000 homes in the borough without water at this moment. But we're in limbo because until the government gives us a clear direction, a clear guidance, we have to continue the process of going through planning applications. And we cannot refuse a planning application on lack of water supply or sewage issues, even highway issues. We cannot refuse an application on those grounds. So what James mentioned, the mechanism to use is a Grampian condition, which is a condition imposed on an approval that says you can build these houses, but until you've got a water supply, you cannot sell them. You cannot use them. So that effectively sort of puts a brake on the process. Hopefully we will get some guidance from the government in the future that will actually clarify all this, perhaps even reduce local plan numbers, who knows. hard to second guess government. The other thing to remember that James Dill also touched on is that none of this applies to applications below 30 houses because they're deemed by the water company to be irrelevant. So you won't be able to stop an application below 30. I've always been a passionate advocate of our 3 planning committees because I think we're 3 distinct areas. That has now changed to a single planning committee. And the trigger point for me was the Bradbourne application, where the application fell across 2 boundaries. And to be honest, it was chaos. And this is a way of regularising the situation, which is why I've changed my stance on that. And finally, Reg 19. It's hard to stay focused on the local plan process because we've effectively been ploughing through this for 10 years. But James mentioned Reg 19 consultation, and this is important to stay engaged. Have your say. This isn't the final plan yet, so you still have a chance to make a difference. So respond to the consultation, make sure your parishes and residents respond to the consultation. And I'll come back later if I may, Chair.
Thank you, Mike. I can see Sarah Barker online.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank James and obviously Mike for a very thorough update on development management and the local plan. Just a couple of points. The peer-to-peer report, could that link to wherever it is be put in the minutes, please, as also the action plan? Because I took part in the peer-to-peer report and I didn't even know the report had been published. So I think the other parish councillors that were involved in that would also like to be updated on that. The local plan, at the moment you're going for the 10th of September. How long will the consultation run for? And are we now able to publicise this date? And again, can it go into the minutes? It's the consultation period, and I'm glad it's outside the summer holiday. So thanks for that. Thank you.
Chair, if that's all right, I can answer those questions.
Yes, please do.
Yes, it's 3rd of September is the sort of current programming that we're looking at full council. And the reasons for that is that effectively with a consultation date of the 10th of September, effectively going out to consultation for the statutory period of 6 weeks. That's the consultation period, because obviously in order for us to meet the deadline of effectively submission by 31st, what we have to do is we have to do the same thing that we did for the Reg 18 and effectively because what the Reg 19 consultation, it's your opportunity to come back in terms of what is in effect the local plan that we would be submitting to the planning inspector. So it's your opportunity to comment on that, and what happens with those comments is in effect we have to effectively get all those comments together and send those to the planning inspectorate, because that then becomes the version that the planning inspector will look at. So the timelines are really important. And as I said, normally, and Michael will be aware of this, normally a local plan to move from Reg 18 through to Reg 19 can take you 5 years. We're moving from Reg 18 effectively to submission in less than 2 years in terms of when we first started the process. So the whole process has been condensed massively, and that's on the basis that, you know, members were very certain that they wanted certainty around effectively allocations, because we haven't got a 5-year supply. There's been lots of speculative applications going forward, and whilst I appreciate the local plan is not popular in terms of sites and things going forward, what it does do is once you have a local plan, an adopted local plan, it allows only those developments in the plan to come forward, and it allows speculative applications that come forward to be refused. So that puts the control back in the hands of effectively the council, who are the decision makers, and it doesn't put it in the hands of developers. And that's where we are currently at the time, because without a 5-year supply, you've got a significant and demonstrable test to apply, which means that there is a default position to approve. And that's a challenging position for members who might not like sites, and that's why the local plan is so important. That's why the timeline needs to be met, and hopefully will be met, to make sure that we have a plan that can be submitted to the inspectorate before the end of the year.
Thank you, James. Gentleman here.
I just got one question. You mentioned that the local plan took in a transport strategy. Public transport system within Kent right now for villages is pathetic. How have you brought in a strategy?
If that's okay, Chair. To accompany as part of the evidence base, we've kind of looking at an active travel strategy, which will be running alongside the local plan. We did consult on that, the draft, as part of our Regulation 18. Obviously, that is being progressed as the sites are being firmed up. So what we'll be looking at is active travel, so how we can promote that. But also, as part of the evidence base, we've commissioned, in addition, a bus study that allows us to kind of look at opportunities that may arise in terms of active travel, in terms of securing optimized bus routes. So, we will have the evidence base as part of the Reg 19, and that will be feeding in. That should be coming, the initial proposal that should be coming quite soon. That enables us to feed those into the active travel strategy and effectively look at sort of optimizing bus usage. But I should also stress at the current time that obviously government policy has changed significantly in terms of how you provide transport infrastructure. It was previously done provide and predict, and that was the sort of the MPPF stance. That has changed very dramatically on the basis that it's not around providing and predicting anymore. That has suddenly changed. So the issue of active travel promotion is something at the heart of sort of planning, and it will be at the heart of the local plan moving forward, which is why we've sort of commissioned further evidence base in terms of the transport study to accommodate that.
Sorry, coming back on that. One bus into a small village per week. Is that part of a strategy?
Well, as I said, there are always going to be areas and bus routes which are effectively some that KCC have to prop up, others that aren't propped up by KCC. And it is accepted some of the rural communities do suffer on those proposals, which is why our spatial strategy is kind of based on a settlement hierarchy. And that's kind of fundamental to how we look at the local plan and how we plan for future development. So whilst you want communities to sustain themselves, you also want to promote those communities that are the most sustainable elements. So the whole basis of our spatial strategy is around our sustainable settlements, and we've got our settlement hierarchy, which sort of underpins the local plan, underpins our spatial strategy. So that's how kind of we look at trying to promote the most sustainable settlements. I accept, and I'm not going to be able to justify here that every rural community has an excellent bus service. I'm not going to be able to say that on that basis. But as part of the local plan, because let's not forget, the local plan is about planning for the objectively assessed needs for the borough. So we're planning for approximately about 19,000, 20,000 units. What we can't do is retrofit the existing situation. The local plan is about looking ahead from 2024 to 2042. How can we accommodate growth in the most sustainable way, and making sure those new communities are connected and have active transport strategies built around them. So I'm not going to say here that we can fix every rural community in terms of bus services, but what we've got to do is build on that to make sure our future communities are the most sustainable they possibly can be.
So villages get lost.
I wouldn't say villages get lost, because what we've tried to do, and I think members would be...
We're actually paying for a bus service once a week.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of specifics, I don't think I'm looking at more spatially here in terms of what we're looking for the whole borough, in terms of what the local plan is seeking to do. I can't come on here and look at every bus service and say whether that's suitable, not. Does it meet the needs of the village? That's not what the local plan seeks to do. The local plan is about making sure that you have a strategy in place that makes sure that where you're going to place new housing is in the most sustainable locations, and also that's backed up by either a modal shift element that enables greater use of active travel. So we do that through the active travel strategy, and also we're doing that through sort of the bus analysis that we're implementing as part of the evidence base of the local plan.
Thank you, Jane.
So you're basically
Sorry, can I stop you there? I'm going to bring in Matt Bolton. I'm just going to take out of order slightly because I saw Matt's hand go up, and I assume he wants to follow on from. I'm just assuming that he'd like to follow on from what James was saying. If not, I'll go to Mike Taylor.
I'm just going to briefly draw that to a conclusion by offering one reflection, which is the council can't plan for the past. What's happened, the council, as part of local plan, no council can force people to use buses where patronage has been reducing. We don't control the housing figure that's been given to us by government. The objectively assessed needs is the technical phrase that James used. And the consequence of that is the assessment hierarchy is important, but by no means the only factor in determining where development will be located. I think this is just that exchange was a very good example as to why we've been very firm in making the arguments that for transport reasons, amongst other reasons, the housing target that's been given to this council by the government is ludicrous, really. But unfortunately, they've mandated this upon this council. It's not an option anymore. And if we're to get the protection that local plan does offer, and to prevent speculative planning applications, then that's a price we have to pay. And ultimately, borough councillors will have to consider that at the next stage of the local plan, which, as James said, we expect to come forward on the 3rd of September, notwithstanding water problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. It was Mike Taylor and then Harry Rayner.
Thank you very much. It was just to pick up on the timetable point. James laid out the timetable we are trying to follow. But the one fly in the ointment, the one rider on that is we do not know what the government's going to do about the water shortage. They may suddenly come back to us and say, stop the local plan. They may ignore it completely. I suspect the latter.
Councillor Rayner.
I just wanted to come back on one point that Mr. Bailey made there, that the funds come from Kent County Council. Actually, there is no money from KCC's council tax raised money. The funds that are dispersed is about £23.7 million worth of what's called BSIP, or Bus Service Improvement Plan money, now on, I think, 2C, BSIP 2C. So the KCC in turn are entirely dependent on government grant money for the disbursement that they put into to fund bus services which are not commercial. Obviously, commercial services, particularly in metropolitan areas, are often self-supporting. Where they are not, it's only BSIP money. So I'll mention that so that he's aware of that when answering questions in future. I'd also like to just put a couple of points, if I might, on this. I'm really concerned about the situation with regard to the water supply situation. and the planning position taken here. It's really important that we take the voters, the electors with us on this. And I am not at all convinced that we are at the moment. People call me from those areas in the division this week or this weekend, in fact, from Plaxtall Hill, to say, in short order, I'm an elderly woman. I live on my own. I don't have any means of getting out. There's no water coming out of the tap, and I can't flush my toilet. What do I do? Now, you get that question early on a Sunday, bank holiday Sunday morning, and then listen to what Mr. Bailey says about we're continuing on the basis of providing additional houses. There's going to be an election either in May of 27 or May of 28. And already I hear colleagues, not from the same party as me, in County Hall, and bear in mind these are likely to be unitary elections if the government's threat or promise is delivered. They have a different set of ideas. They are not minded to go along with what the government wants and are likely to turn around and say in their election proposals that there will be no more building in the new unitary authorities on the basis of their manifesto. So let's think very carefully before we look at going with a local plan, and let's see and make sure that it is saleable and that the public are taken with us, because at the moment I am not by any means convinced that is the case. One other point I'd like to make in connection with Borough Green Garden City. I am very much aware that this is a very weak application, extremely weak. I'm aware, for example, that Vestry, the group that is the developer binding the landowners together, has gone bust. The situation with the landowners is that they are a disparate bunch, and frankly, it's hardly possible to get two of them to agree on the colour of an orange, let alone that they're going to build a road probably running to 3 figures in millions in order to get this job off the ground, to get Borough Green Gardens off the ground. My question is pretty simple and doesn't need a long, complicated answer. And that question is this: do we take Borough Green Garden City out of the local plan at Reg 19? Or do we wait until the end of the plan process, which has the potential, if the Borough Green Garden City comes out at inquiry, not to actually wreck the whole local plan? And I'd like Mr. Bailey to think carefully about that. I don't mind if he replies to me now or he wants to reply at a subsequent point. And I'll also make the point over this that the situation with the local plan coming out with going into finish Reg 19 and submitting to the government by the end of this year gives practically no time at all for it to go through inquiry because of the time lag getting plans into inquiry at the moment, means that the light on the current timetable for LGR, for local government reform, means that Tunbridge and Morning will be no more on the 30th or 31st of March 2028. And what happens with the local plan then simply disappears into the local government reform situation. And that also, I've yet to hear any kind of satisfactory response in connection with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. I'm going to go to Matt.
Thank you. So I think I'd better place to answer some of those questions, and perhaps James would be. I'll focus on the water. I'll focus on Borough Green Gardens first, and then I'll come on to the water issue. So the situation with Borough Green Gardens is the same as any planning proposal that's been put forward in the call for sites, which is ultimately, in order to meet the figure that has been mandated on us by the government, we have to identify the best performing sites to do it. Borough Green Gardens was included within the previous consultation. So if Borough Green Gardens comes out, that will have to be replaced somewhere else. Obviously, that is over the plan period, we're talking 2,000 plus units. So that is 2,000 plus units that will have to be found elsewhere. So I just need to make that absolutely clear. that if Harry is correct, then and 2,000 more houses appear in a parish near you, that is the consequence of what's happening. I actually agree with a lot of what Harry said, but I do feel that his questions would be better placed at the government rather than at James Bailey. And I'll touch on this in relation to water, because myself, Mike, Adam, Mehmet have been there with our officers over the last few weeks on this. So we did something quite unique, but in a very good way, in terms of taking a decision that we would not process planning applications due to concerns about water supply. That was, in my view, absolutely the right thing to do. We needed to get legal advice on that position, which we have received. We now, if planning applications are to continue being processed, and I should say that covered all planning applications on undeveloped land. So even sites that we would support and want developed, they couldn't progress either. You can't just pick and choose which ones. Your policy has to apply to everything. The position we took has been scrutinised, it's been justified, and the outcome of that is we've got ourselves in a position in which planning applications can continue to be processed, which is good. But we have got significant additional requirements for developers to meet. And that is in the link that Alison has put in the chat. I would encourage everyone to have a read of that. There's a lot of technical language in there. Lots of it is aimed at applicants and agents. But it's important to recognise that actually not just the Grampian condition, but the technical note that's associated with it is a significant bar to development being approved. Now, there is a broader issue with regards to the impact on the local plan that I touched on and Mike touched on earlier too, and that's something that we have to effectively, and we are reliant on the position statement that we're going to get from the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs on this. So effectively what's happened is, following the response from South East Water to the local plan consultation, and the fact that they have effectively said the objectively assessed housing need is over 13,000 homes higher than we can provide for in the borough, we turned around to the government and said, well, here's a cracking example of why we don't think we can deliver your housing need, your housing requirements for Tunbridge and Morlin. Now, the water company, South East Water, have stuck to that line, and what we're doing now is going through with the government, with Ofwat, with the Drinking Water Inspectorate, to scrutinise what supply measures and demand measures can be taken to effectively resolve that position. And if they can't, then it is inevitable that we won't be able to deliver the quantity of housing that the government requires of us. But if we don't go through those steps with the key water providers, then we're not going to be able to defend that to the planning inspector when they scrutinise the local plan. Because there's absolutely no point us turning around saying, well, they object, if actually what happens is a route map is developed without our input, and that is then effectively overturned by the inspector at the public inquiry into local plan. So there's two things: supply measures and demand measures. Supply is about simply the supply of water. I mean, put it crudely, where is the water coming from? Does it exist? Why can't it get to the taps at the moment? The demand stuff is effectively on water usage and leakage rates. So, for example, we know that South East Water have got a terrible track record in terms of fixing leaks. I had one in East Peckham that's been going on for 2 weeks. They fixed it yesterday after everyone had reported it. If South East Water were better at fixing leaks, then more water can stay in the system and they can provide more homes. Now, we would argue that regardless of the house building issue, we would like them to fix the leaks more efficiently. So that's an example of where we need to drill down, and I say we're part of the conversation, it's not our responsibility to do it, in terms of actually, can they get the improvement and the investment in their infrastructure in order to deal with those sorts of issues. Now, the consequence of this is, I would imagine, that their position will evolve over time. We've just got to be flexible and adaptable to do that. But what we can't do at the moment is simply turn around and say, no, we are not doing this until we have exhausted every single option. We need to exhaust every single option, because if we are going to take a position that effectively says we are not going to meet the government's housing targets that they've mandated on us, then we need to make jolly sure that we have got every single bit of evidence we possibly can to justify that, because we know that that will be challenged very strongly by every single developer and every single lawyer acting for every developer. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. There are nobody else's. Sorry.
My question in connection with the timeline for the local plan, in terms of James Bailey said we have to get this into the government by the 31st of December 2026, and LGR at the moment calls for the closure of Tunbridge and Malling and KCC as well. I'm not picking on them. All the existing arrangements by March of 2028. That's 15 months, and the current time lag on getting local plans in, through and approved is of the order of 20 to 24 months. Tunbridge and Malling will be no more at during the time that this is in, and of course any new unitary authority is not going to be in a position to adopt the Tunbridge and Malling plan, because they're likely to have an area of some 4 times larger. Thank you.
Chair,
sorry, Michelle, that's because that's an LGR related question more than a planning question. I just thought I'd take that. So essentially, if Tunbridge and Malling were to cease work on the local plan process on the basis of LGR, notwithstanding everything we just said about water, then the new unitary authority would have to start work from the start again. And we know, as was said at the start of this agenda item, how long this has been going on for. So we need to leave the local plan as far as, in my view, as far down the tracks as we possibly can. The unitary authority then does have the ability, if it wishes to effectively adopt a Tunbridge and Malling local plan for the Tunbridge and Malling bit, assuming the whole of Tunbridge and Malling goes into the same unitary, provided it's gone through examination. The thing we can't control is the timing of the examination, the capacity at the planning inspectorate. There are about 100 councils in this exactly the same position as Tunbridge and Malling on this, all thinking exactly the same thing, all saying to the planning inspectorate, where is your capacity? But none of us are going to be able to answer that question in reality. We don't know whether we'll be first in the queue or 100th in the queue. We'll never know the answer to that. The one thing, though, is absolutely clear with regards to local government reorganisation, which is that we need to leave this council's business and affairs with the best possible legacy we possibly can. The last thing we want is a situation in which, say, for example, option 3A, our preferred option for local government reorganisation, happens. Maidstone, Sevenoaks and Tunbridge Wells all have adopted local plans, and Tunbridge and Malling doesn't. Because at that point, there will be no incentive for the other 3 areas to effectively start doing the local plan to catch up with the fact that the current Tunbridge and Malling Council hasn't done it. Obviously, if we've not done it on the basis that that we've got water issues, etc., then the new council will pick that up. And we would like to leave that in the best possible legacy that we possibly can. But we can't, I don't think LGR alone is going to be a reason not to do the local plan, because that could apply to every council around the country.
Chair,
I wasn't actually proposing that the local plan should not go through. I simply asked the question, what happens when it runs out of time? That hasn't been answered, but I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, James.
Chair, I just think it might be worth adding. I mean, obviously, as I referred to this system as the legacy system, obviously local plans are moving into a new system in terms of where you adopt a local plan in 30 months. It's a brand new system. There's changes to all the legislation going forward. So in terms of the benefits, and that's in terms of asking this question, if you don't submit by the 31st of December, you can't progress a local plan under this, the system that we know as of today, i.e. the legacy system. You then move into a new system. Our neighbouring authority, Tunbridge Wells, is the first sort of council that's moving into that area, but it's a very unknown area. And then technically you wouldn't have a local plan minimum. As I said, that's looking at 30 months, but that's untested. So you know, you're entering into, so I suppose it's, dare I say, it's the better the devil you know under the current system, the current SEA proposals, the sustainability appraisal. We know how this system works currently. We know how inspectors progress and assess applications under the current system. So the benefit not only of having the security of progressing a local plan by this deadline, we know how the system works. We don't know how the new system works, and actually that's a much longer timeline. And those are the impacts that also you have to consider. Members have asked us to consider it at pace under the legacy system because we know it. We know the deadline times, we know what's going to happen, but we don't know about the new system. I just think that is an important element moving forward, and the uncertainty in terms of what's happening with new local plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. We've got one more question from West Malling. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question for James, I suspect. I really welcome seeing extra steps being put in for technical reports on water supply for major developments. I suppose my question is, it seems to me that the only people really that can say whether they can supply water for a new development or not is South East Water. And I think in terms of public perception of South East Water, it would be difficult to think of a company that is in a worse public perception than they are at the moment, with no chair, no chief executive, tens of thousands of homes currently having just gone through a heat wave with no water. West Malling was badly affected a couple of months ago. We had half the town was without water supply. We even had to shut down the public toilets in West Malling because of lack of water. And then going back to the Tunbridge Wells situation, which went on and on and on. So I'm just wondering who's going to be actually writing these reports, what confidence we can have in them, and when at the end of the day, the only people who can really say whether they can supply water to the new homes is going to be South East Water.
I mean, yeah, to answer that, Joe, if that's okay. I mean, it's not the easy question. We will, and members will have to have the confidence that not only can you meet the needs of the local plan, but that also doesn't impact on existing supplies. So members, in terms of when they make that or take that decision, hopefully on the 3rd of September, will need to have the confidence that those water matters can be addressed and can be met. So that's currently the work that's going on in the background, as Matt's alluded to, with Ofwat, with DEFRA, who are leading on the project, with South East Water, with the Environment Agency. So a lot of work is going on in the background to ensure or to see whether that confidence can come forward. Now, obviously, that's work in progress at the current time, but we, as officers, need to see that as well, to make sure that we're effectively not putting a plan to the inspectorate that actually is an unsound plan. So we can't do that as well. So not only do members need that confidence going forward for when they make that decision on the 3rd of September, but as I said, officers need that. So there is a lot of work that's going on in the background, and that's culminating to work to progress to meeting that deadline date. But as I said, and there's also evidence base that we need to look at commissioning, because Matt also referred to as supply and demand matters. We need to look at measures in the local plan. You will know that for the Reg 18, we proposed 110 litres per person per day in one of our policies, and that was set out in the consultation document. So we need to look at that. You'll know that South East Water looked at whether that should be reduced to 90 litres per person per day. Current building regs is 125 litres per person per day. So these are matters that we need to look at. There is no one single solution to addressing the South East Water matter. It's a combination of matters that need to be looked at that will look at both supply and demand sides. And as I said, members who are going to have to take that difficult decision are going to need to have the confidence that they can meet that. And I accept, you know, in terms of public perception of South East Water, it's not great. And that's why that confidence is going to be really important to take this local plan forward. But as I said, as Matt alluded to, that work has to be done. We have to look at whether South East Water, because technically this is a South East Water matter, because you know, under the Waters Industries Act, there is a right to connect to a potable water supply. So that is a statutory right to connect. And therefore, that's why a lot of the matters are a South East Water matter. But at the same time, the local plan needs to be confident that it can meet that supply demand, but also without impacting existing customers on that. So I'm not saying it's not challenging, because it is a challenging position. But it's not unique. And I will say that it's not a unique position. Cambridgeshire went through a very similar position. Basingstoke is going through a similar position. There are other authorities. South East Water supplies 31 local authorities within its catchment draw. So I'm not saying that there are 31 authorities in the same position, but there are other authorities who have been going through a similar position and have looked at evidence, looked at supply demand measures. And I mean, they're not at the same stages. They're not at Reg 19 stages or submission stage, but they're looking at the evidence base that enables them to see if they can find solutions. Now, whether they've got those solutions moving forward, that's in a position that we're looking at now to see, you know, is there that confidence? Are there the solutions going forward that enable us to take that plan with confidence to members to say, members, this is a sound local plan? And that information is currently being gathered. But turning back to the technical note, which was the principal question, you know, that technical note does enable, because obviously we will consult with South East Water with information on that technical note, but that looks at also helping us to project, because obviously if an application were to be approved for, as we said, anything over 30 dwellings, in principle, a Grampian style condition could be imposed. So what the technical note enables us to do, and the local authorities, it enables us to look at sort of usage, supply demand measures that can be incorporated, but also a trajectory, because, you know, what we have to look at here is, you know, can we meet the supply over the local plan period? Will we have to put interventions in place in order to do that? That's all the matters that we're currently having to investigate, so we can marry up figures with South East Water to make sure there is enough supply. So as I said, it's a work in progress at the current stage, but we also need that confidence. We as officers need that confidence, because then we have to go to members and say, yes, members, we're happy on that basis that there is sufficient supply to meet the local plan needs, and therefore that is not going to impact on the local plan. And how do we do that? We have discussions with PINs, we have inspectorate visits that look at our evidence base moving forward to make sure that we don't get effectively caught out by a inspector, that we're not going to, you know, a water matter is going to be critical to us. So, you know, there are measures and mitigation measures that we need to put in place as we move forward to that deadline date to make sure we can cover those areas.
Thank you very much, James.
So,
Just gonna...
Sorry, can I just quickly come back on that, Michelle? So when we see the Reg 19 consultation document, that work will have then drawn to a conclusion. So we'll be able to look at that, will we?
Correct. There will be, as I said, there will be an evidence base which looks at both supply and demand measures that, in effect, because if you go out to the consultation, that means that members on the 3rd of September have approved the plan for consultation, and they would have then had the confidence that supply demand measures are sufficient to meet local plan needs without impacting existing supplies. So that, as I said, that's the importance of providing that information up front, because members need that information when they make that decision. So when we go out to consultation, that will all be in the evidence base that sets out why we consider the local plan should be submitted to the inspectorate.
Thank
So
you,
it will,
James.
yes.
Thank you, James. This is the very last question or comment from Councillor Betts, and then we're going to draw a line and move on to the next item.
It is the very last one, and it's mindful of timing because I think the South East Water debacle should probably be a separate item agenda for PPP, because I'm sure we're all very interested as to what on earth South East Water are doing, because obviously at the moment it's the excuse of a heat wave, but of course back in the winter there was no heat wave. So I think a separate item agenda, because it's a lengthy story. Thank you.
Bad idea at all. Okay, thank you very much, James, for joining us online. I think we've exhausted that item now, so we'll let you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item 10, which is climate change. So we're coming back to Councillor Betts, who's going to give a short introduction, and then we're moving on to Louise Stewart, who's going to give us a bit of a presentation. Thank you.
Okay, Chair. Thank you for that. I'm going to be really I'm going to rattle through my slides because I just do this sort of general catch up at most PPP meetings about climate change and what Tunbridge Morning are up to. So very kindly, Louise has provided some slides, only 5, don't worry, and I'll just rattle through as to where we are. So with air quality, you can see up there, I don't think this was reported to PPP, but we had some good news back in December in the fact that air quality management areas, we had 4 revoked, and that's basically on the basis that they've met the air quality targets. So quite a surprise was Tunbridge High Street, which did very well, and of course you can see the others up there. The only stubborn one is Wateringbury, which we all know about. We looked at a planning application very close to that junction, which is clearly only going to exacerbate the problem. So that's one stubborn air quality management area that's still in place. But the good news is the other 4 have been revoked. Moving on, the Green Business Grant. So we've got a few little pictures there. Green Business Grant, first round has finished, and we've had 12 applications with 11 projects being awarded funding through that Green Business Grant. And we've got another round coming forward, you'll be pleased to know. I seem to go around most parish councils advertising the Green Business Grant because 9 times out of 10, parish councils tend to qualify, funnily enough. So I'll keep you noted on that as to how that moves forward, and I'll carry on advertising it. But of course, we also need to advertise this for our businesses because it's all about trying to help our businesses be more efficient. That's the key thing here. And at the same time, obviously, they're doing their bit for climate change as well. But bearing in mind how businesses are suffering at the moment with high energy costs, this is a great grant scheme that's out there. Now that picture there, the Tetra Paks, I'm going to move on to that one straight away, actually, because we've been battling on with Tetra Paks and the fact we couldn't recycle them. Well, the good news is we can now recycle them. So it's just making everyone aware now that you can put your Tetra Paks into the recycling bin. I've always been saying to everyone, actually avoid buying Tetra Paks because we can't recycle them. Well, anyway, you can go back to your Tetra Paks now and we can recycle them, which is good news. Air idling, that was the last little picture there. We carry on with anti-idling engagement work with schools, poster campaigns, and we've recently installed a scheme at Tunbury School in Walderslade. Slide 2, please, Louise. Thank you. Okay. Biodiversity, habitat work. Since January, 2,000 trees and whips have been planted across the borough. That's exceeding our 1,000 target, which is amazing. So doubled our target. We've got a new, I always say this wrong, but it's a Miyawaki and microforest have been planted at Tunbridge Racecourse and Racecourse Sports Ground, with additional planting at Swanmead Sports Ground and enhancements to existing site in Leybourne. The council has also significantly expanded roadside nature reserves with a 93.9% increase in coverage. Management has been adjusted to a single annual cut and collect, and wildflower seeds are being introduced to those areas just to try and boost the wildflower diversity. Slide 3, please. Thank you, Louise. This double act is working very well, Louise, bearing in mind you're not in the room. So in terms of woodland management, Taddington Valley Woodland Management Plan is progressing alongside new signage and a nature trail and a supporting webpage. Holly Hill, the work is underway to prepare a new management plan following the expiry of the previous one. And then we've got Haysden Country Park. Habitat work continues there with butterfly surveys and installation of dormouse boxes, while coppicing has been undertaken in Woolslade and Kings Hill. Thank you. Thank you. Right, so Sarah Barker's going to love this one, and she's probably going to ask me why we haven't got two thermal imaging cameras yet. So I'm preempting that question. So yes, moving on to home energy. This has been a great success. The Tunbridge Morning thermal imaging camera delivering over the winter period with 40 residents participating. The camera is, I think everyone knows about this, but the camera is loaned out to residents or community groups or parish councils, and it helps you identify heat loss and cold spots within your homes, organisations, whatever it might be. And so it helps residents then or organisations make informed decisions about where insulation can be improved to obviously alleviate these cold spots. A breakdown was previously given out. Slide 5, the final slide, you'll be pleased to know. This was a great one, actually. It was the Climate Action Shibboleth and Blackstall Eco Fair. I actually attended, although I had two hats on that day. It was a hat with my Tunbridge Morning climate change cabinet member hat on. But also, I'm not advertising here, but I also did take the cheese stall with me, which seemed to be well received. But what I could see, though, from that eco fair at Shibboleth, I thought it was a spectacular effort by the organisers. It got great support, and quite a number of actually borough councillors were attending as well as KCC councillors. So I thought overall, the eco fair for a small village of Shibboleth was a great success, and we had some installers there showing residents and the like of air source heat pumps, PV panels, and then you could then also go on a little tour around Shibboleth village to actually see the actual installations in place and working. So I think it opened up minds for a lot of people that attended that fair. So yeah, all in all, I thought it was a great success, and the weather was amazing on that day, which obviously helped. And then finally, just a little bit of a plug for Climate Change Forum. We continue to support local climate change engagement and community activity across the borough, with discussions covering topics such as home energy, plastics reduction, and wider sustainability initiatives. But what we always ask for, whether you're in the Climate Change Forum or not, is to give us any news on your local projects or events, and indeed anything you think you might believe the Climate Change Forum can help with or indeed discuss. That's the end of my catch up. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin, Louise, did you want to come in and say anything?
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Metz has covered everything. The only thing I would say is we do now have two cameras. We were in the thermal cameras are very popular with our residents, and due to demand, we did get hold of a second one. And yeah, just in terms of the Climate Change Forum, quite a few members attended the CASP Eco Fair, and we're quite interested to hear about any parishes that are having any events that we could possibly attend. And just on the final note on the repair CAFs, if any parishes have any repair CAFs, we'd quite like to build a directory of what's going on. So if you wanted to reach out to me, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Harry, no?
Councillor Petts has answered my question in the meantime.
Excellent. Thank you. So there are no questions?
Yes, please, Alice, Michelle.
Go ahead, Sarah.
It's with regard to the anti-idling campaign. Who is the officer to contact about this? Because I think it is something that more schools should be aware of. And I would like to promote this within the Kent Association of Local Councils Area Committee. So if somebody could email me the main contact for that, I'd be greatly appreciative. Thank you.
If I can just come back on that, Chair.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, I can send over the email address. That's not a problem. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Louise, and to Robin for your input on that item. So we move on to item 11, which is the Kent Police update. Alison circulated, I think, to all parishes earlier, a copy of the report that's been received from Nick Atkinson, who is the beat team sergeant. The plan was that I was going to read it out, but I'm not going to read it out. I don't think you want me to do that now anyway. So unless anyone has read it already and has any questions on it, I suggest you have it from your clerks and you have a read, and if you do have any questions, perhaps come back to Des or and we can deal with it that way. So item 12 is any other business. Oh, actually, before I go on to that, I would just highlight my community voice. There was a poster that was also included that was sent out. Don't know if you've had a look at it, whether you're signed up for it. I've been signed up for that for some time and find it really useful because you get updates by email to your own inbox. You can find out very quickly what's happening in your area, and there's an opportunity to actually respond and then have a two-way conversation with the police officer on the other end. So do have a look at that if you haven't, and publicise it with your residents. Sarah, you've had a question or comment?
It was for the next item. Any other business?
Okay, we are just moving on to that. Any other business? You had a question or a comment?
Yes, as Matt is in the chamber, I wonder if he is able to comment on the latest rumour, and I stress rumour, that the LGR decision may not be until September 2026. I wonder if he's in a position to comment. Thank you.
I can definitely comment on that. Given that just last week we had a letter from government to ask for some administrative information. I'd describe it, I don't know if Jeremy would describe it any differently, that indicated that a decision would be in July. I think that rumour is no more than a rumour.
Thank you.
Noted, thank you. Mike Taylor.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is also, as we move towards LGR, every parish, every town has got little bits of land that are owned by Tonbridge and Malling, and they may disappear if we don't act now. So what I'd like to try and do is get every parish to contact me with the little bits of land owned by Tonbridge and Malling and KCC that are in your parish. So we've got a list, so then I can talk to the leader and the planners and the cabinet about perhaps transferring some of them parcels of the land. We've got Bastard Mill open space and Platt Woods and a skate park, all Tonbridge and Malling land that could well disappear if LGR goes ahead. So you all know my email addresses, and if Alison can stick a little note on the minutes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Really important point, I think, Mike. Yes, Stansted.
While we have Harry here, I understand he's the representative for KCC and Calc on what was ANOB, or now Natural England. They had a meeting a couple of weeks ago. I wonder if he could feedback on the outcome. I'm particularly interested in what the outcome was for Stansted or Item.
With your consent, Chairman, I'll be happy to do that. Yes, I attend with both hats on at the Calc Joint Advisory Committee. I'll look primarily at the situation with the potential expansion. With Matt behind me, I can confirm that Tunbridge and Malling have written to the JAC unit for the and basically are very supportive of the expansion in the event that that it goes for expansion. The advice from the sponsoring arrangements within the Kent Downs natural landscape is that it is not the appropriate time at the moment to proceed to take it forward. However, I continue to register, as do others there, including Maidstone Borough, that there is a positive interest in doing so, both in the borough and Tunbridge and Malling have evidenced that the borough is interested in proceeding it. And I also continue to cite Ightham and Stansted as parishes very much supporting that. The continuation of the natural landscape continues. The ongoing business continues. They are looking at various projects in terms of gathering additional funding, and that process continues. But I guess you're really interested in the likelihood of expansion. I wouldn't say it's in the immediate future, but certainly increased number of delegates there are pressing for it because of the pressures, including, I would add, water pressures. It's quite clear that the impact on the aquifer and on the rivers, in particular the chalk streams, both in East Kent and in West Kent, Darenth in particular, River Darenth, is clearly manifesting itself, and it being in the Kent Downs natural landscape, then this is something that they need to take up, and obviously one of the issues surrounding that is the level of development in the natural landscape. So that's very much to the forefront. Those are the main items I would suggest that were brought forward, other than the usual housekeeping stuff, which I'm not going to.
I'll keep it short. I'd just like to bring to the attention of the parish partnership panel the proposed extension development to the existing Rootham quarry. It's on the Trosley-Addington boundary. As a parish, we're objecting to this extension on a variety of what we believe are appropriate reasons, and we request your support. What I'll do is I'll send an email that you can forward round to everybody. We have a parish meeting next Thursday, which everybody's invited to. It's an abomination, really, quite honestly. The worst part about it is the applicant has a history of non-compliance with what they put forward anyway. But it's the number of movements, the truck movements, the increased number of potholes, etc., etc., etc. There's so many of the things that go along with a quarry extension, light emittance and stuff like that. It's so simple, but it's very difficult to get it right. And the biggest one on there is silica. We have a school, very close proximity. It's an appalling situation. We know it's going to go through, but we'd like to make as many objections as possible.
Just come to Harry just in a second. Can I just ask Alison will it be okay to circulate something, or is it better that that's done through calc? Yeah, it might be more appropriate, I think, to go through calc, but you will have the same effect because you'll reach all the parishes. So, yes, Harry again.
Just wanted to say that I'm aware through word of mouth at County Hall that the local county councillor for Malling North is not likely to represent the views that Trosley has put forward this evening in terms of that application. and I am quite happy to attend their meeting next Thursday with a view to offering them support as a former member of the Planning Applications Committee at KCC as to how they might best organise themselves.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just really to pick up on the local government reorganisation. We've always had an item every parish partnership meeting, and we haven't had one this time. So I'd like to just ask our leader if we can ask a question. I do know that Damien Roberts met with leaders and chief executives of Tunbridge Wells, Maidstone, Sevenoaks, Tunbridge and Malling, Folkestone and Hythe, and discussed really how it's going to merge forward and how parishes and town councils will play a part in the actual unitary councils. And we've had nothing from the government about how we are going to be part of that organisation. And it's a worry because all what we've been talking today is really what our people are about, isn't it? It's about our local community, how they're living. And it seems that the government haven't even considered us really. And he has come up with a letter, and it's been sent out to every parish council and town council. So you should have had that through Sarah Barker and the secretary. And quite cleverly, we have a very good chief executive, has come up with 10 points really about how we play a key part in making things happen for our community. And I was wondering through our leader, if there's any way that we can bring this to the attention of the government as a local authority of Tunbridge and Malling, of all the good work that we are doing and how they envisage our role within the Unitary Council, whatever model it's going to be, and it's going to be imminent within the next few weeks, really. So over to you then, if that's through. Okay, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the great frustrations during the reorganisation process has been that the role of town and parish councils has kind of been ignored by the government. If you go back to the devolution white paper in December 2024, when effectively they kick-started this process, I think there was one reference of town and parish councils at the bottom towards the end, which is this doesn't affect town and parish councils. Well, it does, because how you interact with your principal councils is particularly critical to parishioners everywhere. Now, we're kind of an odd period in local government reorganisation at the moment, in that we're sort of waiting for the geography to be known, and that a lot of the work that we needed to do has been done in advance of knowing which way we're going to be split up. And part of the problem that we've got is that the next phase can't start in earnest until we know that in July. Excuse me. In the meantime, there's an awful lot of preparatory work going on behind the scenes, particularly with the officers here, essentially to set up the organisations ready to go through the reorganisation process. And actually, Jeremy's probably better placed than me to give a brief update on that if it's of the interests of the panel. What I would say for town and parish councils at this stage is that we do usually have an item on the agenda, but because we're sort of in this weird period at the moment, we didn't put it on this agenda. However, we'll certainly be talking about it at the next meeting, which I believe is at the start of September, because we'll know the geography then. The critical aspect for town and parish councils particularly is going to be effectively how area committees are integrated into the new structure of the unitary authority, and how these parishes and towns will be represented on these area committees. But before we can even consider that, we need to set up joint committees in order to determine the governance arrangements for the unitary authorities, which we can't do until we get the geography of the unitary authorities. We also technically can't do that until the structural changes order, and I know I'm speaking in jargon here, has been progressed through Parliament, which could be at any point from September to March next year. And then the joint committees that effectively arise out of the structural changes order will be influenced by the results of the shadow authority elections in May next year. So you can probably tell, if anyone's still following sort of where I'm going with this, how tricky this is going to be in terms of determining the governance arrangements to drill down into the point as to how town and parish councils will be represented on the area committees and how that will work going forward. But I might, if you don't mind, to invite Jeremy if he wishes to say anything, because Jeremy is leading on this at the Tunbridge and Moorland end.
Very much, leader. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a challenge to sort of describe everything that's going on at the moment, but the leader's certainly right in terms of the level of work that's going into the preparation, and that preparation work across a wide number of different work streams covering finance, audit, assets, quite a wide range of activity, is predominantly focused on information gathering, setting of principles amongst the existing authorities. And I think it's probably fair to say, yes, there's an element of we can do so much, but we can't do everything at the moment because we, as the leader says, we don't know the geographies. So we don't know, for example, there will be an aggregation of services. Certainly, we don't know to what extent there'll be a disaggregation of other services that are currently delivered at the county level. So really, it's getting a lot of the agreements and information together at this stage with a view to, once we know what the geographies are, then we've got a good foundation from which to continue on. Much covers it.
And Councillor Rayner, quickly.
Yeah, thank you. I will be as quick as I can. It's really directed to Matt, and my question is really: is he satisfied? Is Matt satisfied from the information he has at the moment that KCC, the current administration at KCC, is giving full support by way of disaggregation information for the 3 to 5 options? You'll be aware that he will be aware that KCC is looking for one unitary, and the leader has been quite vociferous in saying that they are not providing information relating to, or disaggregation information in terms of the 3 to 5 option. And my question to him is that reflecting in the information that he's receiving so far? And the same goes with Jeremy. Thank you.
Well, you only know what you know, if you see what I mean, and there may be skeletons in the closet at KCC that we're not aware of, and that would be a risk regardless of who the administration was at KCC. What I would say is the engagement from politically with the administration at KCC has been tricky throughout since they came into power last year. They've set their stall out very clearly, and they have decided to plough a furrow that's different to everyone else, shall we say. I have to say, and again, Jeremy is closer to this than I am, but the officers at KCC have been exceedingly professional throughout. They have complied with all of the joint working that, I have to say, has been a roaring success across all 14 councils. That's not to say there haven't been issues, and it's not necessarily issues exclusively with Kent County Council. Remember, Medway is a unitary already, and that does cause some complications. But my impression is that the officers at Kent County Council have been very collaborative, very cooperative, and they're going to need to be, frankly, for the rest of this process. But Jeremy sort of has that direct connection, and I'd sort of again invite him for his reflections on your question, Harry.
Yeah, I can only really talk about the officers rather than the members, because that's what my experience is. But certainly I would echo what the leader says in terms of the project officers at Kent County Council have helped to coordinate a fair amount of the activity. And also what I'm closest to is around the topics of finance and council tax, and certainly the finance officers at Kent County Council have been very well engaged through the Kent Finance Officers Group in supporting that collation of information and setting out principles. So Unfortunately, I don't know about the political side, but that's my view on the officer side.
Thank you very much. I think if there isn't any other business.
Yes, please, Michelle.
Oh, okay. I saw your face, but I didn't see your hand. Sorry.
Very quickly, I'd just like to say that Calc Area Committee will meet on the 9th of July, which could be a very important date. And at that meeting, I will be inviting a range of people to come and talk about LGR because we could have a decision by then. So I'm just warning everybody at the meeting that who could be invited will get an invitation in the not too distant future, so that we do actually get this matter on everybody's agenda. And yesterday I attended a Calc partnership working group meeting, which was extremely useful, and I will be circulating the notes of that when they are available, I hope within the next week or so. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Sarah. So the next meeting of the Parish Partnership is the 28th of August. It's here in person. You can join online if you prefer. If you've got any items that you would wish to see on the work programme, if you could submit those as soon as possible and we can try and work those in. I think that is all for this evening. So we'll close the meeting at 9:45. Thank you for coming.
Good night.